Welcome to another Active Tours travel adventure, backpacking edition. Looking for an easy hike in the Eastern Sierras with the most bang for your buck? Look no further than 20 Lakes Basin Trail Loop. This trail starts just above 10,000 feet, but is relatively flat, undulating a few hundred feet of elevation during the hike. This hike can be done easily as a day hike, or do what we did and take your time on a 1 or 2 night backpacking trip, giving you an opportunity to visit these pristine alpine lakes in magic hour or in the morning. Just outside Yosemite National Park and close to the town of Lee Vining in the eastern Sierras is 20 Lakes Basin Trail. Starting at Saddlebag Lake, this trail is a non-quota trail. There's plenty of parking here at Saddlebag Lake, and there's even some camping spots for you if you need to camp and acclimate to the altitude, which is something that I always recommend for anyone coming up to altitude. As you can tell, Saddlebag Lake is a man-made lake built with this dam, although it's not doing very much to hold the water back right now with low water levels. You can choose to do this loop clockwise, counterclockwise, or even in a figure eight, with very well-marked trails along most of the route. We decided to go clockwise along the route and stare up at North Peak as we started the hike. Walking along the rocky path of Saddlebag Lake is maybe the worst part of the trail, but still a beautiful place to breathe in the 10,000-foot air. There are a couple of different ways that you can do this loop. One of them is 7.8 miles, and the one that we chose to do was 8.5 miles around the other side of Saddlebag Lake, but more on that later. Just at the end of Saddlebag Lake, you continue straight until you reach Greenstone Lake, which is like many lakes in this area filled with loads of brook trout. Hugging Greenstone Lake, fairly tight around its first corner, there's a little stream crossing, and at the end of the stream crossing you enter 75 square miles of the Hoover Wilderness. Moving around Greenstone Lake, it was a little hard to find the trail with new growth, but we managed to find it again. I built a few cairns to help others keep on the trail and do as little damage to the surrounding area. Then we headed towards North Peak again. So tell me the conversion for how many miles walked there, Foodman.
Well, number of miles walked, you gotta multiply by the elevation over 1,000 times your age, over 100. So that puts me at about 8 hours perceived walking. In actuality, Josh tells me we've only gone 2.
Good times. North Peak is the ever-present menacing mountain that stands high above us during the duration of this hike. It stands at 12,242 feet, and there are a few mountaineering routes: Southwest Face, Northwest Ridge, North Couloir, and Southeast Chute. If you've climbed North Peak before, let us know in the comments which route you took. You pass a few more minor lakes along the way: Wasco Lake, Golden Lake, before you hit Steelhead Lake. Here you can choose to continue straight or go on the west side of the lake. One of my favorite parts of this entire trail is the west side of Steelhead Lake. It is the basin of North Peak, and it holds many lakes and some of the best camping on the whole trail. There's even small sun-heated pools to make for some good midday soaking. Something also of note is that North Peak, Mount Conness, and Conness Lake are all part of the Harvey Monroe Hall Natural Area and is limited to day use only, so no camping, no fires in that area. Jumping back on the main trail, we hopped over another stream crossing and headed to Excelsior Lake, another fantastic place to camp, and one that we stayed during this trip. This camping spot was great, perched high above a few lakes, providing some of the most amazing sunset views I've been lucky enough to see. This camp spot more than stayed the required 100 feet distance from any streams, rivers, and lakes required by the Hoover Wilderness. While we're talking about camping, there's no fires allowed in 20 Lakes Basin Trail at all, and you are required to have a bare bin for all your food. So please remember to use leave no trace principles so that this area can be enjoyed for generations to come. I try to make a point to pick up trash along the way on a trail like this. Sometimes trash flies out of someone's pocket or people mistakenly drop it. and I try to clean that up, and hopefully someone can help me and pick up my trash that I accidentally falls out of my pocket. From this camping spot, we did a few day hikes, one of which was to see the Lundy Canyon Waterfalls via the Lundy Canyon Trail. I will say that this is an extremely difficult hike that we did not fully complete. We wanted to get down to Lundy Lake, but we decided to turn around due to the complete lack of trail and loose footing and extremely steep gradient. We decided to stop and enjoy the waterfall and have a nice lunch overlooking the creek and the valley below. So I highly recommend heading down a few hundred feet, seeing the waterfall, seeing the valley below, and enjoying your time there, and then maybe just turning around. It's a little bit more dangerous than I would like. On the north side of the trail, there were a few snow crossings. Nothing crazy, but still something to note. It was June 21st, and so a month earlier it might have been a little bit more of an issue. The daytime temperatures were in the mid-70s, getting down to 30s at night. It's hard to tell here, but there's a slight pink hue in the snow. It's something that happens at this elevation. It's called watermelon snow, pink snow, or blood snow. It's an algae that grows in the snow, and it's toxic if ingested. Really, it was more fun than anything to play in the snow. So just have a good time, be safe, and if you have to melt snow for any survival reasons, make sure you dig deep into the snow and don't get the snow on top. The next lake on the trail was one that we could see from our campground. It was Shamrock Lake. Shamrock Lake is by many people's the highlight of the trip, and it did not disappoint. We took the opportunity to stop and jump in the lake. I, for one, have a hard time passing up a midday soak in an alpine lake. The last stop on the north side of the hike was Lake Helen. There was a bit of a scramble to get down to the stream below, where you could tell that the water level had been getting very high. The stream crossing is where Lundy Lake and Lundy Waterfalls gets fed from. To continue the hike, you hike right along the shore of Lake Helen, and you head up a small pass. This is really the only kind of hill on the whole trip. On the way back south, you hike high above on the west side of Odell Lake, and level out to see Hummingbird Lake. I guess we should talk a little bit about water here. If it isn't obvious, there's a lot of water on this hike, and if you're on a multi-day hike or in a day hike, I don't really recommend this too often, but if you have a water filter, it's okay to just bring 2 liters of water on this hike. Back at the north side of Saddlebag Lake, there's an intersection of a lot of trails mixing through this area. And so this is where you could do a figure 8 if you wanted to be a little different. There is also a ranger house and a nice beach on this side. We decided to spend a little bit longer on the hike and take the east side of Saddlebag Lake, which added an additional 0.7 miles, and it was a really great option for us. The east side of the lake was much more forested and shaded than the very barren and rocky west side that we came out on. So I kind of recommend this side more than I do the other side. It's nice to go and get to the lakes quicker when you're going out, but on the way home, you want to enjoy the time in nature as much as possible. And so the forested area was much nicer. Dogs are allowed on these trails, and we saw a lot of dogs out here. We also ran into someone who lost their dog, so it's always a good idea to put your dog on a leash. Okay, so then we finished the trail pretty quickly, pretty easily. It was a really great trip in general. There is supposed to be some sort of ferry or something that will take you to the end of Saddlebag Lake. It wasn't operational at the time. I don't know if it ever is operational at this point, but because of COVID, nothing was open at all. I just also want to mention again, this is a huge area for fishing, lots of trout out here. I don't personally fish that often, and so I didn't bring a rod, but probably, you know, every other person we saw on the trail was a fisherman. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Josh from Active Tours. Hopefully you enjoyed this trip to 20 Lakes Basin Trail. If you liked the video, please subscribe and hit that like button and comment below. Let me know what your favorite backpacking trip is. I'd love to check it out. This loop was fantastic. Highly recommend it. Even if you only have a day hike, time for a day hike, definitely go out and enjoy this hike. I'm going to leave you with this walk towards North Peak here on the west side of Steelhead Lake.